Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 16th episode of Adapt Revolution, your weekly antidote to hate, greed, and ableism, where the D word is disability. Tonight, we've got a special guest with us, Rachel Dionne Thunder, and I'm going to go ahead and let Rachel introduce herself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Tanse, Gananaskamotan, and Anaskamotan, Upsis Nanahiwak, Upsis Rachel Thunder. So I just said hello and thank you to our hosts and thank you to everybody that's listening. My name is Rachel Dionne Thunder. I am Plains Cree, Treaty 8, Big Stone Cree Nation, and currently residing here in South Minneapolis.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. I think some of my affiliations, I am what some would call an AIM baby from the American Indian movement. My family's been involved in AIM my whole life, and I'm also one of the co-founders of the Indigenous Protector Movement, which is a non-for-profit here in South Minneapolis based around Indigenous-led community action. And we can talk a little bit more about some of the things that we do later. And just big community advocate, love community, spend time in community. And then kind of just on the side, I do a lot of freelance grant writing. So,
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful.
mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we wanted to have you on the show. I know that you and Beth met around, you were both at the National March recently to free Leonard Peltier. And so I was wondering if you want to talk a little bit about how activism, and especially being an AIM baby, how that has played into your life and how that has sort of shaped community for you, just to give people kind of a window into Indigenous community-led projects and work and community from your perspective.
Right. So, the American Indian movement was formally founded in 1968 here in Minneapolis to combat police brutality and under a renewal of traditional spirituality within our communities. So just for some perspective, it actually was illegal for our traditional ceremonies and songs and practices until 1978, until the Native American Religious Freedom Act was passed. So AIM, the American Indian movement, is first and foremost a spiritual movement. And all of our diverse tribes and nations, there's over 570 federally recognized tribes in the United States, all have unique cultural, ceremonial, language, protocols, all of these things that are unique to those people and to that tribe and to that culture. And what AIM did was made it okay to be an Indian again, made it okay to be Native, made it okay to be Indigenous, to be red and proud, and not to have so much impact from the forced assimilation from the colonial governments of the United States and Canada and South America. So for me, this work that we do today, whether it's community work or through our non-for-profit or, just showing up when somebody calls, all of that is grounded in traditional beliefs and protocols and teachings that have been passed down to us. And that cultural viewpoint or that cultural lens, those protocols, those cultures, those understandings can only come from Indigenous people. And so when there's Indigenous issues on the forefront, then we feel that those actions and those efforts need to be led by Indigenous people, Indigenous stories, and Indigenous voices. So a lot of the work that we do through the Indigenous protector movement is elevating those voices and those stories and making sure that community actions, community events, community issues are led by Indigenous community members. Um, so that lens, that AIM brought, that renewal of spirituality, that making it okay to be Indian again, making it safe to be Native again. Um, a lot of that carries over to the work that we do today.
That's awesome.
It's
Thank
real
you.
awesome.
Mhm.
Um, when we talk about colonialism and even down to the level of um, the popular names for places and things like that. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit for our listeners about what it means um, to live in a kind of a decolonized mindset, or can you talk a little bit about just movements for decolonization and the land back movement and things like that a little bit from your perspective, just to help bring community into that a little bit if they're not connected to those lifeways at this point.
Yeah, and there's like a broad kind of definition or movement to decolonization and land back. And then there's more of like a micro lens on it too. Like, and you can get into like very specific examples. So it kind of depends on how you want to look at it, or and it depends on who you talk to, you know.
Yeah.
Two different people or two different entities could have different perspectives on both of those topics. But for me personally, when you're talking about decolonization, when you talk about land back, no matter where you are in what we are now calling, or what is now known as, the United States, Canada, and South America, there is an indigenous peoples or nation that is their homeland. Anywhere you go is native land. Anywhere you go is stolen land, unless you're literally standing on sovereign land, like a reservation or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, like something that I always tell people who are kind of like freshly investigating or educating themselves on these topics, the first thing that you should do is say, okay, where do I live?
Yeah.
Whose homelands are these?
Yeah.
Who are they? Where are they now? Are they here? Were they relocated somewhere else?
Mhm.
Why are they here, or why are they not here? What is the history? And then start with those people and say, like, if after educating yourself with all of that, then look into like what those people are doing today. What are some of their issues and their struggles and their things that they're asking for? And then you can ask yourself, how can I be a part of that?
Yeah.
And so it's different depending on where you're located, what issues are being faced then. But then there's also these overarching issues that all, or I would say most, if not all of our communities are facing. Um, and we can get more into this later, but like active addiction, MMIW, environmental issues, environmental injustice issues. A lot of those are like overarching issues that face most, if not all, of our people and our nations and our tribes. Um, and then land back is kind of going off of that. No matter where you go, you're on stolen land. That was somebody's homeland, somebody's home. It wasn't just like some pristine vacant area that was just ripe for the picking, which is usually how Christianity portrays it. um, that it justifies there, that genocide didn't happen, that didn't happen because there was actually nobody there. Um, then, land back can be, there's differences in, there's rural land back, there's urban land back, which is kind of like a newer thing that's been happening.
Mhm.
Land back can be indigenous people, having control over or management decisions over what happens with land, because if you go back to our teachings, there's really no true ownership of land,
Yeah.
and that was kind of an issue that came up in the understanding that our people had when they were signing treaties, because they didn't understand that concept of ownership. Like,
Yeah.
how can you own the earth, right? And so the way that those treaties were written, the United States government with the crown, um, people didn't understand what they were signing over. Um, and so sometimes land back can be like, like in state and federal parks, it can be helping to manage those lands. It can be tribes, nations purchasing land back.
Mhm.
It can be, sometimes there might be like an individual or a family that um, donate land back. It can be cities and municipalities giving land back to tribes and nations. Like, we've seen some instances of that here in South Minneapolis. So it just depends. There's various forms to various levels. It can be thousands of acres being purchased by a tribe, or it can be one city lot, that's being returned back to a tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. Thank you for that.
yeah, thanks. That is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to talk a little bit more about your work with the Indigenous protectors?
Yeah, so the Indigenous Protector Movement is a new organization. I'm one of the co-founders. So it's myself, Vinny Dionne, who's my husband, Nick Estes, so he's a professor over at the U in Indian Studies, Jolene Jones, a community member, lifelong community member here in South Minneapolis, and Crow Belcourt, who's the son of Clyde Belcourt,
Mhm.
Yeah.
who was one of the co-founders of the American Indian movement here in Minneapolis. And so we're all co-founders of this organization that, how we view it, is like a continuation of the movement. Not that we're replacing the movement. The movement is very much still alive, the American Indian movement, but a continuation or a facet of it, that we can operate, initiatives and get funding and be able to give back to community. And so the main mission of the Indigenous Protector Movement is to support Indigenous led community action and national action, and to support building that network locally, at the state level and nationally, for Indigenous issues. And so when you hear action, a lot of things pop into your mind. You can think like a rally or a protest, which are things that we are very much a part of. But action can be a lot of things. Action can be a prayer walk. Action can be a community feast. Action can be a youth program. So action is just the act of doing something. You're taking action. And our organization, we want to be able to support any and all actions and not have to wait on resources from other entities. We want to have those resources at the ready, that we can rapidly respond as community needs it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
so a lot of, that can be a lot of different things. Like, we want to focus a lot on community safety. We want community to be safe. We want our elders to be safe. We want our women and children to be safe. We don't want people to feel unsafe in their own community. We want to promote and ensure safe access to ceremony and traditions that people feel comfortable going to. There's a lot of different things that we're looking at getting involved in. We're just getting ready to open our office off of Franklin Avenue. We're going to be in the
Great.
second story of the Ancient Traders building right above Maria's.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's where our office is going to be.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
Very awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, we have this space at the Artery, and well, we call it the Artery, and
Yeah,
it's at the
yeah.
Ivy Building for the Arts in the Seward neighborhood, on 27th and 27th, and we would love to work with you all and
Yes.
offer our space for different things that you're doing. Like I said, we have the stage, we have comfortable seating. It's very
Yes.
accessible. We have ramps for our stage and everything too. So that part is something that we really value in our space, is that it is accessible.
Yeah.
And I guess going to the topic of accessibility, where has disability and disabled people, where have they kind of come into your work and community, and how do you hold the like disability issues or issues with elders in the work that you're doing in the community?
So in our in Native community, our communities are very kind. Our communities are always very giving. Sometimes one could argue enabling, especially with active addiction circumstances, but we always take care of our people, and we always take care of each other. I know one thing that, like, my husband Benny, every single week he drives elders every Wednesday. He picks them up at the elders building. It's part of the work that he does for AICDC, the American Indian Community Development Corporation, AICDC. Every Wednesday he drives his bus over to the elders building and picks them all up and takes them shopping, so they can get groceries and go to the store, and brings them back home and helps them unload everything. So, we always make space and make time for our elders. It's ingrained in our culture and our traditions and our protocols, in how we carry ourselves in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
It's wonderful.
Is there anything that you would like to invite people to get involved with, that you guys have going on a regular basis, or something that's coming up that you'd like people to know about?
So every Wednesday there's drum and dance practice at Bedote, and that's from 6 to 7:30 at Bedote Academy here in South Minneapolis. So come, bring the kids, come practice.
Awesome.
There's usually 2 drums, so that's every week. And then right now, one of the issues that we're facing here in community is the continued allowing of toxic pollution in the community. And so we're actually, a couple of us, our co-founders, are speaking tomorrow at a rally
Okay.
in front of Smith Foundry in Bituminous Roadways. The EPA just did an investigation into their to see if they were in accordance with EPA guidelines and protocols, and they're not. It's just and it's not just that they're not, it's the things that we've been saying are poisoning our people and poisoning our community for years are actually now on paper.
Mm-hmm.
the things that they're allowing. And so we're demanding that both of those industries be removed from community, and that they need to be shut down.
Okay.
So if you want to get involved with that, there's a lot of information online. There's a lot of information on social media everywhere. The East Phillips Neighborhood Institute has been sharing a lot. We're going to be sharing a lot on our IPM, the Indigenous Protector Movement pages. And you'll even see some of it coming out in media and in the news if you want to look it up. So we're going to need as much support with that as possible. You know, as Indigenous people and like our connection to the earth, we're going to take a very strong stance on that. But this is something that just doesn't affect only our community, you know, because there's other communities that live here and are affected by those toxins and those pollutions.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So we're going to need as many of us as possible to stand together against that.
We'll definitely link to the Indigenous Protectors website
Yeah.
in the podcast description. This will be video with captions, and then it will also be broadcast on the radio as well. So we'll do our best to get the word out
Yeah, absolutely.
about that, and would love to be involved. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
What time is it going to be at tomorrow?
It's at 5 p.m. tomorrow.
5 p.m. Yeah, I would like to come to that. Maybe if we could come to that together.
Yeah, let's look at our calendars. Yeah.
Yeah, the conference I'm going to should be over well before that.
Great. Rachel, one question that we ask all of our guests is if you have any jokes. Is there a good joke you'd like to share with our audience?
I don't know. I'm not really I don't really normally have jokes on just standby. That's not really my forte.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't.
that's all good. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, and we're definitely going to get the word out there. We look forward to being more connected, and we invite you to all of the things that we've got going on in community as well, and would love to see you in the streets as well as at Badote and some other places here in the very near future.
Do you know
Okay, sounds great.
whereabouts the what address?
Oh, where are you meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, that would help.
So it's gonna be right there in front of Bituminous Roadways and Smith Foundry. It's like off of Longfellow and I believe 28th, right next to the Roof Depot. Like it's all like right there in a little
Yep.
pollution complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
hearing so damn much about that. It is disgraceful.
Is
What's
there
going
is
on?
there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I would just say that I got asked the question the other day of what gives me hope or inspiration for us to continue doing the work that we do. And I was always taught that we look 7 generations back and we look 7 generations forward. So if we look 7 generations back, I look at all of our ancestors that sacrificed so much for us to be where we are today. And then I look at the 7 generations forward and think about that our time right now is going to impact how those future generations live in the kind of world that they live in. And just, it's our time now to sacrifice like our ancestors did to guarantee that future.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, I heard recently, when you know where you're from, you know where you're going. And I like that too.
Yeah.
Just to really be grounded in where we come from and understand that we all live here together and we're all connected. You know, what goes on in the community here, in the Twin Cities and beyond affects all of us. So Yeah, thank you for everything that you brought to the show today.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you shared, and we'll probably see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
hope so.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Have a good one.